Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today we're going to do a fast and loose watercolor painting, focusing on exploring the tonal values of Daniel Smith Moonglow. This pigment this tube was recommended or asked for by quite a few people. So I picked this up off of either Jerry's or Blick. I've just been going back and forth between the two with ordering. But it has 3 different pigments in it. It has PG18, PB29, and PR177. On their website, it says that it's light fast, but it hasn't been tested by, I guess, the company that says if things are light fast or not. So I don't know if it was an in-house test or if it's just based off the fact that those pigments are light fast. But anyway, so it's a mixture of 3. People had recommended it, and some of my explorations kind of looked like the result people were saying. Kind of when you look at, I think, quinacridone rose mixed with phthalo green, they were getting results that were similar to it. So we'll play around and we'll see what happens. I have a 1/4 sheet of Stonehenge Aqua, 100% cotton, 140-pound cold press. I just thoroughly saturated it with water before I turned on the camera, and I'm going to use the medium-sized hake brush to create a scene. I don't have anything planned in mind. We're going to look and see kind of the lightest lights we can get and the darkest darks. But we'll create the scene as we go. Right off the bat, it's kind of a violet purple. We'll see if it granulates, how it interacts. I didn't look up online to see if the properties in that regard. I think this is my 3rd tube of Daniel Smith that I'm looking at. So far we've looked at their Van Dyke Brown, which was a single pigment, but a mixture of sources of that single pigment. Then from there, we looked, it was yesterday, at their brown ochre. And here is the next one. So I'm using an approach that I've played around with based off of the modern tonalist landscape painters in oil painting, where they'll mix their 1 or 2, 3 or 4 tubes with a medium to thin it out, wipe it onto their smooth surface, and then wipe back and away. I'm just doing the same approach, but with watercolor. The modern tonalists that I'm referring to, Stuart Davies and Dennis Sheehan. I always want to mention them in my videos because of how influential I think that they are. And Stuart Davies has some great videos up on YouTube, and a very helpful and friendly fella. That being said, I thought I had left Hammy in the room while he was napping, but he must have heard me, and he is in here now. I see some granulation starting to take place, and I've never been one to be excited by granulation. I was always like, okay, it's just a property. But for it to show through in the tonalist experiments, just the single tube practices, it's been a lot of fun and really interesting. And I'm kind of tempted to go through Daniel Smith's website, find maybe 2 or 3 more tubes that might have that property, might have the variation in the source that they're sourced from, probably earth colors, earth tones, and order some. that being said, if you have any suggestions, let me know down below. Excuse me. And if there's anything you'd like to see, let me know. There is some subtle variations happening, where I'm seeing some areas that are bluer, and some areas that are redder, which is nice to see that split occur. Sometimes I think it's helpful to zoom in on the image to see what's taking place. I'm not sure if the thumbnail or the video might show those properties. I'm going to take the paper towel, I'm going to pull back the whitest white here and play around in the sky. We'll see what we want to do with it. But yeah, Hammy and Percy were out cold a few moments ago, and I snuck into the art room. And here he is, he knows. A little bit of foreground. I paint on a flat surface, so some people paint on angles with the watercolor, and with the wet and wet it'll pour down the center. You'll get an interesting effect when you're painting on an angle, but I just find that with the extreme quantity of wet and wet that I do, painting flat works for me. There's no right or wrong thing. There's positives and negatives to both. Alright, I poured out a little bit more pigment, a little bit more of the tube. I keep on going back to say tube because it's 3 pigments in one. We want to see the variations we can get in the wet and wet stage. It does probably live up to its name without a doubt of that Moonglow. Very whimsical color. I think, and I'm not good with the pronunciation of a lot of the tube colors, but diazine or diazine purple, just a purple mixed with a lemon yellow, produces a really whimsical 2-color palette as well. I have some videos up on the YouTube. I think I have a playlist that has minimalist 2-color combinations, or at least triads and extremely minimalist palettes. So I would recommend checking that out if you like this color as well. That one I'd say pushes a little bit more pinker. Hammy, not right now, but okay. Gives a whimsical, I'd say almost like a winter, maybe a fairy wonderland. We'll see how it scrapes. I'm wondering if the Viridian is staining. The ultramarine, I don't think that classifies as staining, but the red that's in there, I'm not sure about that. Okay, so a sharp point, and I've been making note of this in all the videos, with a sharp point, wet and wet, you're going to create some damage to the paper, and it's going to backfill, and it's going to kind of create a dark effect. This is an easy way to get some quick lines in. And Hammy is walking right on the painting. Hammy, oh no, buddy. Hammy's paw right there, everybody. And we got his fur. So, where was I? Yeah, so the scraping will create that backfill. It will create that dark line. Within monochromatic paintings or single tube paintings, I feel that this dark effect really helps add to the range that can take place with minimalist tubes. Because with watercolor painting, you'll find that as it dries, everything tends to lighten up and tonally shift in a lighter direction. And I like to try to have a wide range of values. Even though I consider myself kind of a tonalist and everything's on the moodier, darker, atmospheric side of things, I like to see how dark I can make it, as well as have that light there. Tammy left the room. I think he is done. He had his goal of getting up on the table, and now done. We'll create an S-shaped composition. You'll just see this curve happening here. See if we can keep that. So that's the one aspect of scraping. You can use a razor blade to scrape and make marks, but in the wet and wet, I find that it doesn't really work too well. A rounder edge will potentially give you those whites. This is because it's creating a wider mark within it. And sometimes you can get that wider mark with the fingernail, mimicking that shape. A lot of things you can use to scrape within watercolor painting. Zoltan Szabo, unfortunately deceased, has tons of watercolor books out there, and he had used a palette knife, and within his books he introduced a way to treat the palette knife to prepare it for watercolor application, and I think for scraping, but I think also for laying down pigment. Being that it's a metal tool, it's going to have the manufacturer oils on it, just like a nib for pen and ink will have the manufacturer tools on it. So in order to remove it, I think he had put it in maybe like lemon juice or stuck it in a lemon. But I believe, and I did this with a potato, you could just take like the nibs and stick them in a potato to remove the manufacturing oil for about 15 minutes, and you just rinse it off. But just look that online, look it up. Some people use toothpaste to wash it and remove it. I guess the grit helps. There's even some websites that compare 2 or 3 methods to see which one worked the best for them, for the flow. I used to stream a lot of these paintings on Twitch. I kind of stopped doing that. I haven't done it for like over a year, but I did log back into the app, and I'm thinking about starting to do that again. So if you're interested in any real-time paintings and watching and kind of hanging out and chatting, let me know and I'll get that ball rolling again. And one of the goals is, as the Patreon and other support grows and the channel grows, I think I want to figure out how to do the video overlays, where you'll see maybe me talking and a different view while paint. Of course, about a week ago, me and Joe Menza and Matthew Clemens had gotten together and on a Zoom meeting had our first Zoom art discussion. And put that up on YouTube, and the feedback was fantastic. People are really enjoying it, so that's something I want to do again. Right now it's kind of just playing around with their schedules. Currently I'm on break from work. I'm off for the summer as a school teacher. Well, I know Joe has told me what his daytime job is, but I don't remember off the top of the head, and Matthew is an arborist. Now, these scrapes, you can see I'm ending them lower in the picture plane. This is to create a sense of perspective where our objects that are coming close to us are larger. The scene is imaginary, so if you use little tricks like that, you very quickly start creating the scene. I wonder where Hammy went after his finger painting. The only negative I've ever seen or thought of with this approach is that you do use quite a bit of fresh paint. It probably is easier to use student grade paint, such as the Da Vinci brand, the Van Gogh brand. Oh, well, Da Vinci brand is professional, I think, quality, but price-wise, it's close to Cotman and Van Gogh brand, which is really great. But that being said, so if you're using a lot of pigment out the tube, or a lot of paint out the tube, you might be kind of hesitant to go ahead and have fun and really explore the full potential of it. And if you're not exploring the full potential of it, you're holding yourself back. And I'll use some extreme numbers to kind of get that thought out there. So that you could see some oil paints, oil tubes, for $50. And you might see a synthetic hue of it from Blick or the Windsor line, maybe for $4. You're more prone to being more liberal with your application of the or use of the cheaper one. All right, so far we've been playing with the scraping tool. We've been playing with the hake, a little bit of paper towel texture action. We even have some hammy fur in there, and there's a paw print somewhere in this location. The granulation of this tube is there and pretty nice. There is a separation of at least two of the pigments taking place. There's some areas that have the more bluish green and areas that are more red and purple. Hey, Hammy. We'll do a few more marks, and then we'll see how the tonal shift, how it dries. But I want to do some heavier application first with this #1 rigger. I really want to get a burnt sienna, burnt umber that's naturally sourced. and see the granulation and variety that occurs within that. Let's bring this guy up a little bit. And that guy's reflection. We may even bring up some stuff out and over. So this is just more compositional exploration. Let's see. This guy's going to have a shadow and reflection down onto the water. In our dry stage, I'll be able to really bring that out. Even bring it up and cross that over here a little bit, just the top of those trees. All right, I think it's an interesting composition. We applied the whole gambit of wet and wet. I'm going to pause it. We're going to do a dry off. We're going to see how things shift and dry off. All right, so I just did the dry off, and honestly, it retained quite a bit of its tonal depth and darkness. There's areas that I obviously want to bring out more, but I'm pretty pleased with the lack of that. I'm not sure which one that it might be that would cause that. Also want to mention, so it has the Viridian, it has the ultramarine, it has the red. You may be able to mix maybe like a Viridian or phthalo blue with ultramarine. I'm not sure what type of red you can mix into that, because this is PR177. I don't think I have that anywhere else. But if you want to follow along and you don't have these, you can obviously play around with that. Okay, so there was an art term that I had mentioned quite a bit in some previous videos, and I cannot remember the name at the moment. It was one that Joe Menza had pointed out to me, where it was heavy application of the pigment causes it to kind of sit above the paper and kind of look a little shiny and leathery. Bronzing effect, that's what it was. And I had noticed, there's this spot right here. After I did the dry off and while I was doing it, I had an area of application in the wet and wet stage where I had the bronzing effect take place. So that is interesting. I don't know if that's a statement to the size of the particles. That is interesting. Trying to get these guys to sit in place. So whenever you put the trees in, if you kind of ground them, create shadows around them, growth around them, that'll help out. We have this foreground branch that had softened quite a bit. I'm just going to accentuate the shadow side of it, give it a nice effect. one of the current art books I'm reading is, I don't know the name, it's like Learning to Draw from the Masters. And essentially it's a picture of a master drawing, some marks on it laid out, like places marked A, B, C, D, etc. And the author talks about how the master had conceived the spot, how he used a line or shading, or how she used the form to create the different effects. And it had me thinking, because I've been playing around with sketching and drawing and portrait stuff this summer again, it had me thinking how I can use some of that within my watercolor paintings. I always wind up using the rigger, either the number 1 or the number 4, for calligraphy type strokes. And I think I can harness those strokes to give the round effect, the knob effect of trees in different portions. I hope that makes sense. Kind of like just little swooshes to give the roundness of that tree. The book hasn't gotten to any, I don't even know if it has any Van Gogh stuff in it, but if you look at Van Gogh's drawings, you'll see that a lot of his drawings have that kind of unique mark application that he had also in his paintings. And it was cool that he had carried those two things back and forth. Horizontal strokes for the surface of the water. Just little vertical strokes on that edge. We can really get a gambit, I think that's the term, of tonal values with this pigment. I think that, I'm going to say it now before this is even finished, I would recommend this tube, or I would recommend mixing the colors for it. Maybe their mixture, like I said, might have just different granulation qualities to get that effect. I'm not sure the price of the tube. I know it's a little bit, it's more than $10, but if you're looking for single tube paintings and playing around, this is definitely a good one. Holy cow. I can't believe it took me this long to finally play around with it. And I can imagine if you're painting flowers and other subject matter, probably be a lot of fun and get really cool effects. Let's even try those little hook marks here to create that base. Just the calligraphy type strokes. We'll do some heavy application here. So I think I offered some alternative mixtures that might help achieve this color scheme. So play around with that. I don't know if I mentioned, of course you're welcome to follow along with anything that I do. And you're welcome to sign your own name to anything that you follow along with. I want you guys to be successful, to have fun, and to have money for art supplies. If you'd like to support this channel, I have a whole bunch of different links down below. I have the Patreon, where I try to put up exclusive content, and I thank you so much to those of you all that support in that fashion. It helps, with obtaining art supplies. and allows all these different experiments. Liking and subscribing and commenting helps this channel grow a lot as well. So those of you that ask questions and comment, just that engaging factor really helps here. So thank all y'all so much. I do have the Etsy if there's anything y'all like. If I don't have something up there that I've done recently, let me know and I'll see if I have it and put it up there. Sometimes Etsy can really be hit or miss, and plus it's summertime, so I think a lot of people are out vacationing. We started hitting that storm every day part of the Louisiana season, where we get a storm every day. I was looking earlier, unfortunately the roads were still a little wet, so I wanted to get some longboarding in, you know, for exercise, but I don't know if that'll happen before the next storm. I had gotten caught out in a storm the other week, and that was really rough, having sunglasses on and having the water pour down my face, and I wear contacts, so trying not to let my contacts wash out. Just doing this side dab. I think we can use the hake with this straight from the tube. Let's build up some darker foliage values. Just trying to spread out the density and the mark making. I am very pleased with this pigment, but I think also purple is one of my favorite colors. Even though I don't have it on a palette or anything like that, and I'm usually an earth tone person, I think if I was to go color wise, it would be purple. Building up a little density, just subtle changes throughout. Then we'll do a dry off. Then from there, I think we'll have to just sign it. I don't think there's really much more that needs to be done. We could put some birds in if we like. That's too dead center. It'd probably splatter really well too. All right, last pause and then we'll dry off. Okay, so once again, really happy with this one, and the range of values, dark to light, the granulation, the separate colors in it. I think this one's a winner. This tube is great. So Daniel Smith Moonglow, hope you all enjoyed. You'll have a great day.